Okay, you saw the title of this video, so you probably have an idea of what's about to happen. Just to preface, I'm okay. We're all going to be okay. Alright, let's do this. I thought I was done talking about Espada numbers. It was a fun little competition against myself to try to predict the number rankings, only to end up being wrong about 90% of the time. It was a great experience. I had a lot of fun doing it, and a few weeks ago, I did a whole video where I was like, I finally know all of the Espada numbers. I thought it was over. I thought it was done. Well, I was wrong again, but what else is new, really? Me being wrong about Espada numbers is like the way I know that the Earth is still on its axis, you know? I can hear Kubo laughing at me from the other side of the world, because it turns out I actually didn't know the numbers, even after I had been told or shown every single one of them. And I'm honestly not sure how to feel about it. But at the moment, I don't think I feel good about it, at least. But maybe I'll feel better once I talk it through with all of you lovely people that know better than I do about this universe and this story that I am absolutely loving, even if I'm about to be pretty critical about it. So let's get into it. We had 10 Espada, and all 10 had their numbers confirmed, which seemed like a good indicator that the list was complete, right? But that's only because I didn't think that the number 0 would be one of the positions, and I didn't know these guys could have secret numbers or that the numbers could instantly change depending on their transformations, because how could I even remotely consider that being a possibility, since there was 0 buildup, 0 foreshadowing, 0 hints, and 0. Let's talk about Yammy. He hasn't ever been my favorite, but I've been wondering where he disappeared to considering everything going on. He's part of the Espada and was one of the first Iran cars we met, but then he only popped up a few times, didn't do much, went to a mandatory boardroom meeting, and then vanished off the face of the earth or the face of Hueco Mundo. Wherever, he was gone. He just seemed to be completely out of the story for that little while. His biggest showing was when he first showed up with Ulquiorra, and I loved the dichotomy between them, but since then, he's kind of faded more and more into the background. He has felt mostly like a grunt character when he has appeared, just a big, strong, muscly dude that hits really hard and wants to fight. He's Nappa. He's Gregor Clegane. Or really, he's more like the big heavies in James Bond that don't have a fun gimmick. He's not Oddjob. He's not Jaws. He's not even Dave Bautista in Spectre. He's this guy. Who is that? Exactly. I enjoy his brutish design, don't get me wrong, which in some ways makes him feel like one of the most traditionally hollow looking of the Iran car. He still maintains kind of that big monstrous nature, but overall I'm definitely not his biggest fan. He's just a pretty simple brute kind of guy and seemed to serve his purpose as such. Also, my wife thinks he looks like Ron Perlman, so there's that, I guess. So I've been wondering where Yammy wound up, and these recent chapters gave us an answer. He has been resting and eating, apparently storing up a lot of energy, and once he woke up, he found himself getting a little involved in the Ichigo and Ulquiorra fight, and it was fun seeing him rampage. It was cool seeing Uryu scrap with him a bit, and absolutely kind of embarrassing him as well, and I even liked him getting in the way of those two psychopath girls, tormenting Orihime more. I absolutely hate them. I barely like talking about them. They're probably some of the least likable characters in the story, so him getting in the way of that was fine. I am kind of annoyed he interrupted the Rukia Rudborn fight, but it was nice seeing his reaction to Ulquiorra's death. We met those two characters together, so I'm glad there was a real acknowledgement of their relationship, as brief as it was, and Yammy seemed legitimately upset by it. He seems a little pissed, a little sad, a little angry. He at least respected Ulquiorra, maybe even liked him. Wasn't ever developed much, but I did like it coming full circle to the two of them from when we first saw them, but it's what happens after Ulquiorra's death that makes this a very different kind of video for me. Because this is when the big, shocking twist happens. When Yammy's 10 tattoo suddenly drops the 1, and he reveals that he's actually ranked number 0 among the Espada. Listen, I've been doing these videos for a while now. You know how much I love this series and how much I love a good Bleach plot twist. Emphasis on good. This series has pulled off some incredible surprises so far. Kubo knows how to create an excellent plot twist, or unveil a wonderful secret for a character, but I don't think what we get here is either of those things. Let's first just discuss a little bit why some of Bleach's biggest twists have worked before. The Aizen betrayal was the climax of an entire plotline, where Kubo built up intrigue with a whodunit mystery about Captain Aizen's apparent murder, only to find out he orchestrated his own death. Most of the things happening in the series were because of Aizen's machinations, and there were hints throughout the Soul Society arc that something was amiss, but we couldn't quite place it. Kubo made it feel like we'd been trapped in a hypnotic illusion along with the characters, with proper hints, proper build-up, and an earth-shattering payoff. It's an amazing twist, an incredible reveal that blew my mind, as I've talked about before. It was great. And then there's another twist. Nell, we get introduced to a character one way, Kubo gets us to like her and to trust her, all while dropping little hints about her past and her potential power, and then finally reveals it all at such a pivotal moment. That also worked extremely well and felt right within the story, and that's a key for twists to work. It needs to feel natural. It needs to feel like, oh yes, this is a clear progression that I just didn't see coming. This makes sense. I could follow the breadcrumbs of those twists if I was observant enough. It was all hinted at the very least. When I look back, I can see it all laid out in front of me. That's what made the revelations at the end of those mysteries work. The twists made sense from both within the fictional world and worked on a narrative level for us as the readers. They were surprising and yet extremely satisfying. I didn't feel that way about this. It was surprising, but it made me mostly go, what? Instead of, oh, of course. No, I mostly just read it and went, huh? As far as first impressions go, my immediate reaction, Yammy secretly being number 0 just feels off to me. Yes, there's something a little fun about the 0 hiding in plain sight, and Yammy is the only Espada that already has a 0 in his number, so on a surface level, I can see it being a fun twist, but the implications of it narratively are what bother me. It just doesn't seem to flow naturally out of what we've been doing. It feels out of place. It doesn't feel like we've been building toward this at all. We spent this whole arc being told and shown that there are 10 Espada and there's a hierarchy to their ranking, and I've talked about how that was such a great way to build mystery and hype for these antagonists, and it's been so effective during my own experience. Whether it's how the number systems influence character decisions like Grimmjow and Neutra, or how a number reveal was used to intimidate both our characters and us as readers, like when Ukiura showed he was only number 4, or the reveal that someone like Stark is number 1. But this Yammy reveal doesn't hit the same way, because it feels kind of random. There was no real build up to it, besides, I guess, me wondering where Yammy has been all arc, which didn't feel like a mystery as much as it felt like he was just kind of put on the back burner until we needed someone to fight the people still trapped in Hueco Mundo. Or maybe, I guess, there was the acknowledgement that Yammy's size has been growing, I guess. He's been apparently storing energy, and when we first met him, we saw that he liked to eat a whole city's worth of souls when he went to the living world. But none of this really had any impact or hints of a secret 0 ranking, or a hint that Yammy is secretly super freaking strong. Nothing hinted at that. Yammy felt weak, and in his base form apparently is weak, much weaker than his resurrection, I guess. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know what Kubo was thinking when it came to Yammy, but I can just speak to how it feels to me as a reader that just had this big moment fall flat. It feels like he was trying to find something interesting for Yammy to do because he was still hanging around somewhere. And naturally, yes, there are still some enemies in Hueco Mundo that haven't been dealt with, and Yammy was one of the Espada that just went away for a while. So yes, he's left over. Yes, he's still here. Yes, someone should still fight him. But I don't know if you had to go this far to make him a viable threat right now. Like, we could have him still be number 10 and fight like Chad. Give Chad a real fight with the Espada. There's a moment in these chapters where they're like, have any of you fought the Espada? And poor Chad is like, I guess sort of technically I did. Because he punched Neutra that one time and then immediately got one-shotted. So let Chad fight this guy on his own without being like, oh no, this is the most powerful Espada of all, so Chad definitely doesn't stand a chance. Unless Chad pulls something like this where he's suddenly like, oh no, I was the weakest of our allies here, but now I can use my foot, which makes me stronger than all of my friends, out of the blue. I'm trying not to sound too pissed. but I am a little annoyed. I am. I'm sorry, but I am. This just fell completely flat for me, which hurts, especially because of how much I pondered over the Espada numbers. You all saw and heard how much thought I gave into my predictions for the Espada. And when I was incorrect before, it was like, fair enough. I gave it a shot, I knew what the terms were, and I give my best guess. But this one didn't remotely give me or anyone else a chance to even theorize about. It just comes completely out of left field. Am I just bitter about this reveal making me even more wrong about my predictions than I already was? I don't think it's just that, but maybe. But even if I hadn't focused so much on that, like even if I hadn't given so much time and thought to the Espada and their individual rankings, I still can't see this reveal working any better if I hadn't done that. I think I still would have felt kind of bothered and a little unfulfilled by the execution of this. And the little explanation we get for it didn't convince me either. The whole storing energy and all of that, just, it doesn't make me think that this would be the outcome of Yammy storing some power, is that he's suddenly stronger than all of the other Espada. And it's kind of played off as like oh, did you really believe the information that you were given? Because Yammy's all like, who told you that the Espada were 1 through 10? And it's like, well, the guy who was number 11, Sha Long, even if we shouldn't have believed him or if he was misinformed, you know who else told me, Yammy? You! By being an Espada member who has a 10 on your body. That might have been why it seemed like it was 1 through 10, because you were literally the number 10. Saying, actually, it's 10 through 9 is silly when number 10 was at the table. And yes, he was secretly 0. But again, there was no build-up or foreshadowing I can think of to any of this. It just happens. Within universe, how does this make sense? Why would this be like a secret little thing? It just feels goofy that Aizen would give him a number 10 tattoo, but have it so that when he transforms and becomes this gigantic monster, the real tattoo shows itself. It's like, oh, joke's on you. It just doesn't feel like this would happen within the universe, within the story. It just, like, it's too much of like a obvious rug pull toward the audience instead of being something logical within Bleach, which for a successful surprise, like I was talking about, you want it to be both. Nell being a previous number 3 in the Espada made sense. You could see that being part of the history of this world. Aizen turning on the Soul Society with this grand plan that apparently took like over a century for him to concoct. It makes sense. This doesn't feel like that, at least not so far. So Yammy activating his resurrection suddenly makes him more powerful, or at least has more potential spiritual power, I guess, depending on how the Espada are really ranked, than every single other member we've met? It just comes out of nowhere. But the part that actually bothers me is how this reveal doesn't make the Espada system any better. It really just makes it worse and a little more confusing because it's this unnecessary facet that wasn't needed. 1 through 10 was simple but effective, and suddenly creating a secret unknown number is one thing, but giving it to someone who was, as far as we were aware, the lowest ranked out of the 10 isn't compelling. Maybe it could have been, but this is Yammy. Compared to so many of his peers, Yammy's just not that interesting, at least so far. Maybe this will lead to him showing that he's way more interesting than I think, but as of right now, this feels kind of unearned. Like I said, if there had been some hints, any at all, this might have worked out well, but because there was no legitimate setup, it just feels tossed in at the last moment. But I want to withhold completely pooping on it. Like, I haven't seen his resurrection in action really yet, so maybe it is just incredibly powerful and completely makes up for how much weaker he was prior to the transformation. But even if it is, that just feels like such a leap for him to gain that much power and just supersede everyone else. Like, I'm sitting here thinking this reveal of the secret zero might have worked a lot better with someone else. Like, I don't know, the guy that just revealed a super secret second transformation and fought the main character? A guy whose whole personality seems to be about nothingness? You know, the absence of something? You know, zero? Can you imagine if when Ukiura transformed his second time against Ichigo and the 4 on his chest became a 0? Or the hole in his chest, or the holes he likes to make in other people's chests all turned out to be a 0? Thinking that the top 3 most powerful are in the living world, only for Ichigo to be up against someone that's actually more powerful than them? A character like Ukiura that's had so much development and kind of represents the literal definition of 0. That could have worked much better, I think, if Ukiura had actually become the 0 Espada. Though it still wouldn't have fully mitigated another thing that bothers me about this reveal. Stark showing himself as the top Espada, as the number 1, was such a powerful moment in how casual it was. It's scary to think that someone like him might be so much more dangerous than we initially believed. It was executed beautifully, and this happening so soon after that, finding out that, oh wait, Stark actually isn't the most dangerous Espada. It sadly deflates a lot of Stark's big moment for me, which I hate that it does that to something that worked so well. And again, to have this be Yammy of all people. He works well for the limited function he's shown so far. He's an excellent grunt, but he hasn't so far been particularly noteworthy character-wise. Putting aside the number issue for a second, the design of the resurrection itself is fitting enough. Yammy grows to be this giant monster, which makes sense for him. His size and raw strength is kind of his whole thing, and this look absolutely reflects that, just like so many of the transformations have complemented the character. If only his shoulder just still had a 10 on it. We didn't need this. I don't think it improves the story. Unless something major happens with this to change my mind about that, I don't see how Yammy turning out to be number 0 to fight the people still trapped in Hueco Mundo is that big of a deal. And I know that this video is much more negative than usual, but these videos are just my honest reaction as I go through this series, and I'm going to continue to just share my feelings. And unfortunately, right now, it's just a little bit of disappointment for this one aspect. Like, I can't forget just how incredible the chapters leading up to this were. Everything with Ukiura and Ichigo, that was all some of the best stuff in Bleach. And I think that happening right before this just makes this Yammy reveal stand out even more as kind of a weird random development. There was so much nuance and emotion with the Ukiura fight. So to have that be followed up by such a kind of messy, nonsensical twist just makes this look even worse. This isn't hopeless though. It's salvageable. It's going to depend on what happens next with Yammy. Maybe Kubo can win me over to this idea and it was just the reveal that didn't land. That's what I'm hoping for, but I'll just have to wait and see. Maybe this is when he's going to make Yammy interesting, when I'm going to go, oh, actually it makes complete sense that he's number 0. I've got my fingers crossed for that I'm going to be able to come back to this video and realize that I really had nothing to worry about. Like, that's my hope. I want this to work. But the reveal did not. It did not. So we'll see how this pans out, but right now I am a little frustrated by this development. I just wish it had been handled a different way. Like, even as much as I think the Ukiura transformation would have been the time to do this, even what's his name? The little kid that we saw get created, Wonderwise, the weird kid that's got like weird powers and is kind of intimidating and he doesn't say anything. Like, if he had turned out to be some Zero Espada, we've already established there's something weird about him going on. But even that, I feel like would have been a stretch, but I think I would have bought that more than Yammy. But I'm glad it's Yammy, I guess, and not Loopy or Samari. But it's still, this isn't ideal. This isn't ideal. So apologies if you came to this video looking for more of my usual tone, but this is, I think, the first time I was reading the manga and feeling a bit frustrated by the storytelling to like a distracting degree that took me out of the story. It wasn't just like a plot development that was kind of like, oh, okay, I guess. It was like, what? What are we doing? I don't know. It's tough. It's really not that bad, but it is frustrating. From just, for me, after obviously all my talk about the Espada in particular, it is difficult to see it get handled this way, But all of this being said, this reveal may have seemed to be very out of the blue, but it hasn't at all taken away my enthusiasm for what's ahead. I'm still so excited by everything in the works, and yes, even to see if this Yammy reveal can actually make sense in the long run. So until then, I will hope for the best, and for this reveal execution to just be a small road bump on what has otherwise been an incredible ride. Thanks for listening, guys. Sorry if it was a downer. Just being honest. I hope you all have a great day. Take care. I'll see you next time. Bye.